Today we're going to talk about how to build a pitch deck for your translational research and its potential impact. This directly supports the Translational Seed Award proposals, and so it's tailored to that solicitation, but I think the advice is also applicable more broadly. I know the advice is applicable more broadly. So a couple of things before we get started. The session is being recorded, so please take note. Janet will be distributing the slides later on. Please ask questions throughout. Just unmute and ask, or use the chat function, which Heather and Janet are both monitoring. For follow-up after this, we'll talk at the end about how you can schedule office hours for your seed translational research award proposal, but also let us know how else we can assist you. One caveat for today's slide: if you don't see how it applies to your project, let's discuss that in office hours. So I've tried to make the guidance very general and applicable to everyone I'm aware of. So quick reminder of the Translational Seed Award's purpose. It's to advance translational and applied R&D efforts towards the development of spin-out and startup companies, out-licensing of UMass intellectual property or copyrighted work, scalable community engagement, social impact ventures, or other external entities. In other words, to have an impact on real-world problems. I want to remind you of the elements of the pitch deck that are in the full proposal guidelines. Title slide with a slogan or tagline capturing the potential impact of the project. Explain the problem that you will be solving, which on the flip side is the opportunity you see. Your solution, how you're going to commercialize. Is it a spin out? How are you going to what's the vehicle you're going to use for commercialization and impact? Who's on your team? Super important. And then how is this going to go forward? The milestone-based project plan towards the realization of commercialization and societal impact. So let's get to it. So we just talked about the 6 slides in a Translational Seed Award project application. We will talk a little later about a slightly longer version of a pitch deck, which is sort of the first investor deck, as they say. But either in both of those, and the purpose of the pitch deck that you put together for this proposal is to communicate your plan to create impact via a startup or other vehicle based on UMass research, on your research. So how does that fit into the context of what you already heard about in terms of the info sessions? Basic research is, of course, supported by federal funding from agencies that fund basic research. Inventions, knowledge, data that come out of that research or any UMass research that you think has broader applicability in the real world can move into this realm of these maroon docs, translational research. Those of you who are going to submit an application are really saying you're ambitious to move beyond that, move through that zone to having something that's really ready for investment or other funding, angel and venture capital, SBIR funding, small business innovation research funding from the federal government, donors, if you happen to be a nonprofit social impact enterprise, customer and stakeholder support. And so to move beyond that, we talked yesterday about how you really need to think about your commercialization and impact planning at the same time that you're working on your translational research. But how do you communicate that? And how do you communicate the big opportunity that your translational research plus that early commercialization and impact planning really tees you up to move toward? And that is often one communication vehicle for that is widely recognized by investors and and funders in general is a pitch deck. So the pitch deck really is, at this early stage, communicating the potential of a project to different audiences. And that's critical because many people with funding are making those decisions about whether to be interested really on a split-second basis. And so what they want is 5 or 10 minutes of an explanation and an overview so that they can know whether this is something that they want to hear more about. And that's what the role the pitch deck serves. And even the shorter elevator pitch, which we don't ask for here, but which I'm always happy to talk about in other venues. So one of the first questions that you should ask yourself anytime you're doing a pitch deck for anything is, who is the audience? And in this case, the audience is our technical and non-technical, external and internal reviewers for the translational seat award proposals. The external reviewers in particular bring an investor perspective, and that's why I'm going to talk about that perspective later on. But here's sort of a collection of some of the organizations that have participated in our review process in the past. So let me get directly into the immediate, the 6 slides we're asking you to provide. And well, let me stop and ask first, any questions about what I just said? Okay, I'm going to go on. So the first slide we want to talk about is the title slide with the slogan or tagline. And I've seen a number of teams, not necessarily from UMass, but I've done a lot of pitch coaching and pitch deck coaching and a lot of mentoring in this area. And I've seen a lot of teams not take full advantage of the title slide. Maybe they'll have their company name. It looks beautiful. They've got a beautiful image, but they don't have any other information. The title slide is already an opportunity for you to draw in your audience. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a tagline. It's also super important to have your contact information. So your project or entity name, your tagline that communicates impact, and contact information, because you want folks to be interested in contacting you. You don't want to make that difficult. I've included some startup taglines here that I think are interesting. They each have their strengths and weaknesses. They're all UMass related companies. The first, Clarity, we talked a little bit about yesterday. Destroying PFAS forever is the tagline on their website. It's a very strong tagline. It's making a very strong claim about their capabilities, and yet it says nothing about their technology. So this is designed to draw in somebody who's really interested in the solution. Same with engineering bacteria to treat solid tumors. Ernest Pharmaceuticals tagline on both pitch decks and on their website and on other materials. So here they're saying a little something about their technology, engineering bacteria, but they're also saying a lot about what it's for, to treat solid tumors. So again, very short, very pithy. I know that both of these companies have worked over years to refine these. Three Daughters, another UMass spin out that I mentioned yesterday. Evolutionary healthcare for women. Doesn't really say anything about their product, doesn't really say anything about their solution, but it does say something about where they're trying to make a contribution in terms of perhaps an underfunded, underattended group that has not received the sort of attention that maybe mainstream healthcare has received, and in particular, a strong case for an area that is underfunded by investors, healthcare, women's health. Florin, which is a company formed by 3 UMass alums. It's their own research. they moved back to Amherst and to our collaboratories to work here because of the facilities on campus and the resources on campus and the expertise on campus. They are building ultracapacitors. It's a Black founder-led team, and they are very thoughtful about incorporating diverse suppliers into their supply chain. So their tagline, "Through power, we empower," is giving a hint of what they do, although not their product or their technology, but they are in the clean energy space, and we empower. They are alluding to their DEI focus. So each of these, again, strengths and weaknesses, works in progress always, but think about what you could do with your tagline on your title slide. The next slide is the problem or opportunity, and often technical founders or research-based founders going, but wait, what about my research? We will get to that, but or, what about my solution? We'll get to that, but it's really important that people understand your problem, the problem you're solving, because that's really what's informing how big is this opportunity? How deep is this opportunity? How urgent is this opportunity? So we want you to describe the nature and extent of the unmet need in the marketplace and the societal need that you plan to address. So what's the unmet need? Who has the problem? How serious is it? And it can be serious in a couple different ways. It can either be serious in that a lot of people have the problem, or it can be serious in that there is great suffering caused by the problem, and there's no solution at all. So ideally, you'll have some evidence of the unmet need based on the perspective of potential stakeholders or customers. That can come from something like customer interviews. We mentioned I-Core yesterday and customer discovery interviews, but it can also come from, at this point, from statistics that you garner about the number of people who have a disease, the number of water bodies of water affected by pollution. Really, this is a way for you to think about quantifying the problem and maybe even telling a story about the problem. So use strong examples to tell the story, augmented by data. That can be, well, we'll get to some where you'll get some ideas for that. But again, cite data to sort of and the cost of society, but really focus on the immediate problem. So for something like small factories produce waste heat that could be energy, and so focus on the fact that small factories have this problem. There's your unmet need and your potential customers. Save global and population-wide challenges for the impact discussion. Although you can hint at it in that there are a lot of small factories, and here's all the customers we could have. Once you set up the problem, set up your solution and foundation, and foundational research, describe your solution. Again, not a lot of words, I would say. Lots of pictures, use words sparingly. Focus on the impact of the solution rather than how it works. So what you're doing, not how you're doing it. Although it's often good to provide evidence that the proposed product or service is likely to work. Remember that your research will just be the starting point of that. So that's the foundation. And then estimate with quantification, if you can, the potential results of the product for users. So are you extending life, improving health, reducing environmental harm and reducing their energy bill at the same time? So really, again, think about what's the benefit to the user. And on both of these slides, the unmet need and the solution slide, really push yourself to use images and brief statistics, nothing too complicated, a simple, very direct. That said, I'm not an advocate of dumbing anything down. I'm an advocate of selectively presenting your case in as strong a way as possible, knowing that people are going to look at this for just a few minutes. Just the way if you were presenting it, these 6 slides would probably be a 5 to 8 minute pitch at the most. Next would come your spin out commercialization impact plan slide. This is really one where you're wanting to sort of show the big picture of what kind of self-sustaining newco or new org you're thinking of as the external entity that's going to scale what you're building now, starting to build now with your translational research. Think about what you can say about funding, your R&D in an external entity, as well as products and services that it would be offering. Who are the customers and stakeholders, and then what is the overall impact? So this is a slide where you can really capture the current vision of how this project will result in self-sustaining real-world impact. And then your team slide. So often in scientific presentations, the team slide is at the very end, and it's just sort of a big group picture. Here in pitch decks, we really want you to present your team that will be working on your translational research, but also on any commercialization or impact efforts to move that forward toward a self-sustaining organization. So, put everybody's picture. This is the easiest slide to make visual. Put people's pictures on, put their roles at UMass. Certainly, PIs, we want you to highlight your role as PI, but also think about what's the role on the project team, the translational team, to really move this project forward. Often, this, in the past in projects, we've had graduate students and postdocs who put their hand up, who are really intensely interested in transitioning the technology out to the real world. Once they graduate, this is a place where you can really identify that. This is also a place where you can also identify what you need. So happy to have you put currently seeking a CEO with social impact venture experience, or with biotech startup experience, or clean tech startup experience, or whatever you need, you feel you need. Also happy for you to have TBD, a scientist with this expertise that we don't have on our team, because often as you start to build a product, you run into needing to incorporate other disciplines. So this is a slide that I hope will get you thinking about the organization you need to build, just as we talked about yesterday with the commercialization and impact plan talk. So show the team's strong point, including potential leaders for a new external organization, and show how you intend to grow. And then lastly, the timeline and milestone slide. So we talked about this yesterday. This is the slide we shared yesterday that you might kind of table you might want to build for your commercialization plan. This may be too much detail for the pitch deck. You might also want to show some progress to date, but this. So there are lots of different ways to do this, but the big idea here is to show the big picture and your focus on achievements and advancing the project. So, and I would add to that your momentum forward. So also, this is an opportunity. I will tell you, I've seen a number of these timelines in pitch decks, and I just want to call out that you really want to make sure that any obvious interdependencies make sense in this chart. The other thing is, even if you don't have anything to say about regulatory right now, whichever regulatory organization might come into play. It is important to note the sorts of the steps you're going to have to attend to, so that at least your audience knows that you're thinking about it. You might just put something like investigate what needs to happen early on to convey that you're really thoughtful about moving this project forward and that you know what you don't know. All right, so I'm going to stop now and ask if there are any questions about those specific slides. All right, and I wanted to say a little bit about other optional uses, because I think it's important to know that we're not looking at this optional pitch deck as something that is just, is just a one-time thing. Really, this optional pitch deck, the way it's defined in the solicitation, is a starting point for you to start thinking, using it as a tool to engage broader audiences. This is to reach new audiences on campus and beyond, probably not in your field, not people who would necessarily be interested in a scientific presentation, but individuals and groups that are interested in your impact, interested in how you're going to make all this happen. So reaching that new audience on campus and beyond is part and parcel of advancing your project. I want to especially point out that ACORN grants from Mass Ventures and OTCV grants, the Office of Technology and Commercial Ventures out of the UMass President's Office, have small grant programs. If you haven't taken advantage of those, I urge you to. They generally come up in the fall or winter, and I can provide links to those and talk about those programs if you're interested in. We can talk about that offline. But both of those applications include video pitches with decks very similar to the one we're describing here. So again, this is a good starting point to think about those kinds of applications as well. It's also a starting point to showcase your project at innovation events, which we occasionally have on campus, but which we also support people applying to. Eugene just came back from Mulsey Day, the Massachusetts Life Science Innovation Day 2024, where she pitched. Now, she did a 1-minute pitch, but to apply to that program, you need a pitch deck. And so this is the kind of pitch deck that would fit right into that. Lastly, this is really something that we would think of as a beginning of an investor pitch deck. And that could be for either for-profits or for a nonprofit that was using pitch decks to, or a philanthropist that was using pitch decks. So again, this is designed to be a start to help you advance your research translation efforts toward real impact. So a tool to support ongoing advancement. And then I want to give you a little more of the broader context. So this is a PDF we hand out frequently from IALS Venture Development. It was developed in collaboration with Charlie Johnson, who's the managing director of Maroon Venture Partners, which is a fund that invests in UMass related startups. And he is also a professor in the Eisenberg School. And before coming to Eisenberg, he was a business attorney. So he and I have worked on this, but this is a very standard kind of outline for initial investor pitch decks. Again, start with the problem. We haven't added the title slide, but I hope that goes without saying. Start with the problem, the solution, technology, which is the foundation for the products you propose to build. Evidence that your product will work. Now you can have a whole slide for that. Why your solution is better than those that currently exist. We talked a little bit about differentiation plans yesterday. That would be where the differentiation, what you've learned about in differentiation planning would go. Evidence that your customers will buy. We've talked about that. there are certainly a lot of secondary sources that will make a compelling case for what customers need, but the gold standard here is primary research, going out and talking to potential customers and stakeholders. I-Corps is a training program that supports that and trains. It's a National Science Foundation program that trains researchers to go out and talk to potential customers in an unbiased way to really gather that evidence. Your intellectual property plan, how will you scale the business or the venture or the enterprise? Business is broadly construed here. So think about that. How will you make it impactful broadly? What's your progress to date? Here's an opportunity to talk about your progress to date, as well as your milestones going forward, and how will you scale the business. Plus progress to date really is that milestone chart plus what you've already done to create some momentum. The team we've already talked about, very transferable slide. How investors will achieve a return. This is more on the milestones and creating a picture of how the how financially it will go. In the case of a nonprofit, you would think about how will you reach self-sufficiency. So you would build that case, and then asks of your audience. And that's super important here, because for an investor pitch deck, sometimes you're asking for advice, but if you're really just getting to know the investor and you've had a special opportunity before your fundraising, you can ask for advice. You can go ask for keeping in touch, but ultimately you will ask for funding at some point. And then you will want to know a lot about your investor, because you want to know how much do they generally like to invest, when do they like to invest, what do they invest in, and all of that. It goes sort of beyond the pitch deck we're asking you to do for this. Most investor pitches, just to give you some context, are about 10 minutes of presentation plus up to 20 minutes of Q&A. But investors will cut people off if they as soon as they many investors will cut people off as soon as they realize this isn't a fit for what they are doing. So let me go on to talk about that. This is really something that is often sort of overlooked. I really want to, one question I get often is, why shouldn't I put my technology and my research, in a lot of my technology and research, into my pitch deck? And there are actually good reasons for it. It's not just that this is the custom. It's really about how investors look at pitch decks and use that initial pitch deck. So when a founder comes in to pitch an opportunity, investors are thinking, especially founders like you all, because you come with enormous scientific technical credibility. You are researchers at an R1 university. Faculty here have many years of accomplishment in terms of federal funding, successful scholarly publications, leaders in your field. You come with that enormous technical credibility and scientific credibility. What you don't come with necessarily is the other things founders are looking for. And so they're going to be on the lookout for that. So founder comes in to pitch an opportunity, and investors are thinking already, how does this fit into what I'm interested in? How big is the problem? How different is the solution? Can they make money? Are they thinking about the business model? Do founders have the right skill and attitude? And by attitude, I usually mean, can they hear what investors are saying? And can they have a really good discussion about the project? How big is a success is possible? Is it likely? And then some investors will be thinking about, there are some firms that will invest broadly, or some accelerators that will invest broadly. There are others that are thinking about, is this biotech? Is this clean tech? Is this educational is this an educational company, an education company? So they're looking to invest in sectors. So they're thinking about all of those things. And what comes out of that in 10 minutes or maybe in half an hour if they have questions, which is always a good sign, is should we pursue this? And generally things get sorted into 3 buckets. Ask the team to keep in touch, which generally means we might be interested, but you need to make a little more progress. So keep in touch, get back to us with updates, and we want to get to know you better. And so keep in touch, get back to us with updates. If they ask a specific question, come back to them with that, an answer ASAP. If they say come back when you have this evidence, come back to them with that evidence. So, really listen when someone says, keep in touch. They might say no thanks, and then they really mean no thanks. So, you'll walk away, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to say good things about you. You want them to be saying good things about you. The investor community is very small. And then the other thing is, should we pursue this? They might say yes. Now that when they say yes at this stage, they don't mean I'm going to get my big bag of money out from the bank and give it to you. They mean I need more information. And so then they're going to start asking lots of detailed questions. Experts will vet the technology. This is the other reason you don't need to spend a lot of time and energy on the technology or on your research in the initial pitch deck, because they will ask questions later. They will want to get a technical expert in who will want to really understand at a deep level, how likely is this to work? What are the pitfalls? What are the milestones that the team still needs to achieve to get from translational research to the market? And so then they'll, as they get to know you, they'll move from light due diligence to deep due diligence and analysis, and then they'll decide to invest or not invest. So this is why pitch coaches often advise not to spend time explaining the research. You certainly want to talk about that it's there. You want to talk about what you can do with it, but you don't have to explain how. And you don't have to even explain the how of the problem necessarily. What you're really trying to do is say what you intend to do. And that is where the difference you'll make in customers' lives, the impact you'll make on society will come into play. All right, so there's nothing like watching pitches to really get attuned to the expectations. And I've got some suggestions here. The first one is a TED Talk. And of course, it's a TED Talk, so it's very highly produced, but it is a TED Talk by one of the leaders at a company called Rondo Energy, which is a startup, but is growing fast. They have a very technical product to store heat. I'm not going to say anything more. Heat for energy. I'm not going to say anything more than that. You can see the title is, "Can a simple brick be the next great battery?" That's not a bad tagline there. It really draws you in. I'm curious. So that's a talk that is explaining something that is very complicated. He does not explain how it works. He explains the concept and why it works. And it's a great example of how someone does that in 10 minutes, and also includes a call to action. There are also a number of these Equalize 2023 pitches. Equalize is a program that's run by Osage Partners and Washington University in St. Louis. It is to support female academic researchers, faculty, founders. And so if there are any of you who meet those criteria here today, I would urge you to take a look at this program as a way to get some training and get some exposure. They each year put out the videos of their pitches from their pitch competition. Every team that applies to them and gets into Equalize gets a fantastic industry mentor. Barbara Osborne did this a couple of years ago Barbara Osborne from Vet and Animal Science. She thought it was very useful. You could talk to her about it. You could talk to Burnley Jacklevic about it in the tech transfer office. You could talk to me about it. We'd be delighted to have more people in this program. But they've divided up the pitches into digital tools, med tech, physical science startups, and therapeutics videos. So there's something for almost everyone here. And even if you're a social science sort of startup, project, I would urge you to look at these. They are all informative, especially the ones that have won the pitch competition are very useful to watch. For the amount of information they put into 10 minutes, for the amount of information they can put onto a slide without defaulting to bullet points, how they represent the problem, how they represent solutions, and how they talk about their company and team are all very illustrative of how people do this, and people who are, are where you were perhaps a year or a year and a half ago. So I really love these pitches, and watch more of it if you want. There are lots of ideas about how to do pitches there. So I go to that pool regularly. Just a reminder of campus resources. I urge you all to reach out, and I'm always happy to talk with anyone who wants to about what how these resources can be used, and other resources as well. And so I'll just conclude with the Translational Seat Award proposals, reminding you of office hours, remind you that we're here to help, and remind you that a copy of the information slides will be emailed to you later